So if we're going to do this, we should probably introduce it like a Battle Buddy podcast.
No.
No?
I mean, we can. But that's kind of our introduction right there.
That this is how good they normally are.
No, but I sent you a text at like 2 or 3 in the morning. I don't know where either one of us was, but I sent you like a title of like what, like the next like season of episodes for Battle Ready. Mm-hmm. And there was one, I think it was like episode 5 or 6. The question I always get whenever I do like an Instagram thing, or when people DM or people email or weird people who come to church and ask me this very awkward question of when are you taking over Mosaic? And it's so weird because you're alive.
Yeah, I was in Taipei, and this pastor asked to drive me from my hotel to the airport. So I thought, he must have lots of questions.
Is Pastor Kevin in here?
No, Pastor Kevin is...
Poor guy. This guy from Taipei, he's gotten a few.
And he asked me one question in the hour to the airport: what's your succession plan? And I thought, of all the questions you could ask about leadership or ministry or life development or whatever it is, the only thing you're interested in knowing, what's my plan for leaving?
I was like, yeah, Dad, when are you going? No, but so the title that I wanted to, if we're going to title this anything, it's There Is No Succession Plan. Because I think a lot of times in modern day culture, pastors have positioned themselves like kings. And it's not on us to position ourselves like kings, it's on us to position ourselves like prophets. And to go actually back in time from a kingship to a place where actually we're building altars and sacrificing what we need to sacrifice for people that surround us and actually trust us with leadership. And we were having this conversation of how it needs to get back, I don't even know, we were talking about it back there, how it needs to go Old Testament with some things. And for us to be in a place where we can actually do that, we were talking about there is no succession plan. We want to talk about how we got here, the fact that we are here and where we're going, and the culture of Mosaic that surrounds that. We have core values, we have things that we believe in, but honestly, a lot of it is just in the wild.
Yeah, and for me, whenever people talk about succession plans, it's such a limited way of thinking. Because one, I kind of feel like you give the least talented person whatever's already established. And you give the most talented people the things that have not yet been created. So I don't want to give Aaron what I created. I want to give him a platform to create. Why would I want to burden him with my life? He has his life to live.
Please, thank you. Thank you. But a lot of it came from this, and Battle Ready is the final chapter of the last era.
And that's probably part of it, is that Battle Ready came out of the theme of when I had cancer 18 months ago.
18 months ago. It's crazy to think
it feels like a forever ago.
Yeah.
But
has it been 2 years? It's been
almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had surgery in January, and 2 years ago coming up, and I did know. We didn't know whether I was going to,
no, it was bad,
be here or not, and it was pretty advanced and pretty serious. Yeah. But I never even then, I would say it's such a crazy thing because you don't know. I had cancer, and before I had surgery, I got hit head on by a car that didn't stop at a stop sign and totaled my car. And I laughed thinking, cancer's not going to kill me. I'm going to get killed by a runaway truck. And you may think you know what you're dying of, but you don't. And you don't know when you're going to die. So in the sense, a succession plan assumes you have so much control over the future. And so what I want to build is so many leaders that it's a diaspora plan where everybody goes and creates and does beautiful things. And I want Aaron to create a beautiful future. I want Mariah to have a beautiful future. I want Lawrence to have one, and Joe and Carlos and all of our team. And, if my life only creates enough room for one person to imitate my life, it's been a really small life. And if my life can create a platform where many, many people can jettison from that place to live the life they were created to live, then I feel like my life has actually been meaningful.
It's interesting, too, because I think that, we started this podcast, we called it Battle Ready. It was the final chapter, and it was really like the kind of ending of this season, because you had gone from, I still remember we were in Pasadena, where you told us, he took us to a restaurant to tell us that he had cancer.
Okay, that was not my best move, all right?
And my mouth sometimes is like a pirate, and I had some words.
A bad pirate.
A bad pirate. and I walked, I remember I was like, this is Silence. Not okay. And I walked to the bathroom, and I remember looking in the mirror and thinking, man, if I'm it, I am not the answer to this thing. And the status of my soul, the status of my heart, the status of my character was not in a place where I could take anything over, let alone lose a father who has been so pivotal in my life. So then doing the podcasts, I think I left staff for 6 months, and then starting Venice, and then helping with OC, helping with Seattle. A year and a half later, we're kind of in this different place where we don't think like that anymore. We think like whoever's charging the hardest will potentially lead this season in our lives. Mm-hmm. And so oftentimes, like Emerson Nwatney started Venice with me, and then he dipped super quick to Mexico City and has just charged it.
But he's not bitter at all. There's no bitterness.
Not bitter at all. Not best friends anymore, but but I do think it's this interesting thing of we're a lot of times people like will come off platform. Like I came off when I did the compassion thing, and the first thing someone asked me was, "How did you think you did?" And I went, "Well, apparently from your question, not that good." and whenever I'm going to preach, whenever we're going to do something, people always go, "You're going to be great." And I was like, "I'm going to be something." So if we're going to title this anything, it's There's No Succession Plan. I'm the future of something, and we're building something, and it's going to keep going. And we keep planting all these churches, and I want to ask you, why? You used to do it. You used to plant all these churches, and then you stopped it, and then what brought it back?
I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons. I think you and Mariah are a huge part of it. And because there was a season in my life where I didn't think I'd ever do this again. I didn't think I would ever be connected to the broader church or be writing books or speaking at events. And I knew that I loved Jesus and I knew I loved Mosaic, but I didn't really love the public space of Christianity. And I thought, and I liked creating beautiful things, and I really had a passion to be a filmmaker, and I loved doing fashion, and I loved creating art. So I didn't know I was going to be doing this again. And but it's really fascinating because I feel like you and Mariah became so intensely passionate about Jesus that you guys pulled me back in. So it's like, what's the succession plan? Well, he brought me back in the ministry, so I guess I'm his succession plan. So him and Mariah led me back to this. And with such an intensity, because you're singularly focused. You wake up every day and go to sleep every night. How do we impact the world in Jesus' name? How do we help one more person come to faith? How do we grow the church? How do we start new campuses? That's all you think about. Literally, day and night. Yeah. That's all he wants to talk about. And
it's a good way to lose a lot of friends.
Oh, his mom she hates it. She's like, "Can you guys talk about anything else?" And I can't. See, that's the thing, is that I'm not as like neurotic as they are. And I can talk about basketball or football. I can talk about soccer. I can talk about art. I love talking about science. I can talk about black holes. Or is it an alien ship coming in, do you think, from out of...
Did you hear about this? Okay, so if you were here, how many of you guys were here last year? He did a talk called Event Horizon. And sometimes when the creative team meets up, I think one of the last times we actually did one in here, and our creative team, if you don't know them, they're legends, and some of us in the back wall. And they stay up all night, like once a month. Like this week, probably every night this week. But we were going through like the different messages that have hit us really hard. And me and Joshua Rose were talking about like this 2 messages. He did a message on fractals, and I still can't tell you what it means. And they did a message on Event Horizon, which in my brain it was the Interstellar soundtrack.
Which is the point of return once you enter into a black hole.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So which is where you enter into the quantum liquid, and all light disappears. And so
my brain just doesn't even explodes.
So he asked me not to do any messages like that.
No, that's not even true. Not even true. I just said, hey, if you were going to title something, if you're going to title it, what would it be? And then he goes, check your phone. I DM'd you last night on Twitter. And then what was the name of the asteroid that came? I'm trying to pull it up.
Oh, it has a Hawaiian name. And that basically is implying that scientists believe it's a space probe from the other side of the universe looking for signs of life. And I thought that's kind of awesome, because I remember recently somebody asked me, do you believe that there are aliens on other planets? And I said, I think that we're the aliens from the other planet.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh. But I mean, what makes us think we started here? Like, why couldn't the creation story, why couldn't Genesis be another planet that we destroyed by our terrible decision making, and Noah's Ark actually be us? That's our mythological story of us traveling across the universe, finding a planet that we could exist in, land here.
Time out.
I'm just vamping.
You're going to go there right now?
No, sorry. No. And this is our secession plan.
We're all getting on a boat and we're going to another Earth. Keep going.
No,
too good.
But no, my whole point in that, I don't know if I have a point, but is that I feel like we don't spend enough time rethinking our understanding of reality. We've heard the same story for so long that we think it's the biblical story. But remember, Copernicus was right. The church was wrong. And when they wanted to kill him for being a heretic, they were actually killing him for telling the truth and for seeing reality more clearly. And so I feel like a part of, like, I don't know if I see reality more clearly. I just know that the reality we see isn't clear. And that the things that we assume to be true are assumptions, not realities. And I hate it whenever Christians hold on to a belief and think it's that it's a conclusion. And then when the world unwraps the fact that it was superstition, we get confused. And see, I have so much confidence in the scriptures that I actually believe that there's nothing that will ever be discovered that will betray my confidence in the truth of the scriptures. But I don't have a lot of confidence in our interpretations of the scriptures. Because most of the time, we believe what we've been told, not what the scriptures tell us. And so I feel like a huge part of Mosaic, and everyone would talk about this a lot, because everybody kind of like sees the art and the creativity and the innovation, and that's all really good. But what concerns me is that what people won't see is the way we see reality, like the way we understand what it means to be human, the way we understand the human existence, and the way that God works in real time. That for me is more important. I'd rather you walk away with a bigger view of humanity and what life is than, they do this, and because technology will always change. But if you can have new eyes to see the world in, then you really have something, that will make a difference in the world. I think sometimes people think that Mosaic is me, and Mosaic is so much more than me.
Well, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I had nothing to do with this conference. I have been on a journey of discovery with you.
Yeah.
I saw the merch the same time you did. I was going through, just like a fan, picking out my merch before it sold out.
But we could talk about that. That was a big thing. So I was in New York for 2 or 3 years. And when I got back, you asked me, I think I was an intern, and I was cleaning things, and there was no job. You told me to start over. You wouldn't help me get a car. I was living in your guest house for free, and that was going to change very soon. And we had this conversation about what is Mosaic, because you were thinking there's lots of mosaics all over the world. We can't get the name back. There's no way. We're talking about expanding and how do we do that, but we can't copyright a name that's already been used by 100 different churches all over the world, because you named the church before the internet was really a thing. Yeah,
it's frustrating for me is that churches would take our name, but they wouldn't try to reflect our culture.
Right. And so we had this conversation. I said, Mosaic isn't, and take my words. Well, no. Mosaic was you. I said, Mosaic was you. And you were the brand of Mosaic, and if you changed the name and you just said Erwin McManus is going to do church in a random parking lot, there'd probably be a few thousand people that would show up. And that's a problem, right? Because when you die, so does this. And we were talking about like that 5-6 years ago when we were having this conversation. And my goal when I got back was to build Mosaic into a brand that people followed for creativity, all of the vision that you had casted, but actually actualize the things that he had spoke on for 10, 15 years. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so, which has been funny because, even just social media wise, Mosaic, we've gotten Mosaic to build and build and build. And I think we have churches all over the world who see us as a creative influence in their life. And I know we influence some of Adidas stuff. I know we influence some of Starbucks stuff, unfortunately. I know we influence a ton of different companies that follow us and watch us, and then I meet them and I'm like, oh, thanks for giving us credit for your marketing campaign. But even next year, because Conference 2019 is literally said Untitled because we don't want anybody to steal the name yet.
Because every year when we name our conference, it gets stolen within weeks.
Yeah, but it's flattering, right? So
it is flattering, but when you see it in the corporate world, and within weeks, and like there are suddenly future ofs everywhere,
all over Latin America,
and then conferences and then even in our own city, people take the theme and do a 3-month series on the theme that we're going to use a year from now. So I just said,
but I think that is the beauty of Mosaic.
It's wonderful, but I just said we're not going to release our title until 3 months before the conference, so it's going to be untitled.
Yeah.
And if you need a title, you probably don't belong at the conference anyway.
Yeah, you're not going to get it. So, but that journey of like building a brand, right? So now Mosaic, because we've talked to this a lot. It's like, okay, there's Mosaics all over the world. Some of them are going to be affiliated, some of them aren't. But where do we go from here? We've had this conversation a ton with Lawrence, and we were like, well, do we change the name? And then you were like, no, the name's perfect. And then we went to this place where we were like, it doesn't matter. Mosaic is open source.
We're very open source.
We're open source.
Yeah.
And so
we want to give everything away. I think that what I want to make sure is that it's almost like
Are you speaking a different language?
Yeah. There's a great sushi place here called Sugarfish. And then if you created another Sugarfish, but you didn't keep the quality, and then when somebody says, hey, let's go to Sugarfish, you go, no, I've tried that, I didn't like it. And then you go, oh, no, that's not Sugarfish. It has the same name, but it's not the same essence. And that's what I really deal with, is I have no problem with, I want to change the way Christianity talks about faith, about humanity, about spirituality. I want the language of the church to change completely. And if we've been successful, when we're done with all this, whether it came from Mosaic or not will be completely irrelevant, because it will be the future of humanity.
Yeah.
And
that's good.
But what we want to make sure is that the language and the essence travel together in what it means. And that's really, really important.
And that's kind of a bit of the thought process behind doing a conference. We're like, okay, we're open source, but then we keep getting frustrated that people keep borrowing things from us. So then let's just give them a DNA, like let's give them a place where they can actually get into our DNA, into our culture, into our
So we want
system.
you to steal everything right. Does that make sense? Don't just steal the branding, steal the brand. Like what the brand really is, not just what the brand signifies. And like I bought some Nike stuff overseas, and it wasn't good.
Some what?
Nike stuff.
I'm sorry if you're from Nike in here.
And
we do love you. They sponsored this conference.
Because I trust Nike. Like I feel like I can go anywhere and buy Nike, and I'm getting Nike, unless of course you go to parts of Asia.
And you get Nike extra small.
It's a different kind of Nike. It's Nike.
That's swoosh upside down.
Yeah, and so, but if that's all you knew about Nike, you would go, yeah, that's not really a brand I like, right? Right. But I don't want to digress here too much. Part of the reason we're doing this is because we want to give everything that we learn away. We just want you to get it at the essence, so that it translates right wherever you go.
Yeah. And there was a big conversation about, I was like, let's go dark. Because we built this social media thing, and I was like, let's stop it all. Let's go off the web. Let's go off of live stream. Let's go off of the internet. Let's completely go dark. Let it die around the world. So we're the only place you can get it is here. And we decided we didn't want to make it Mecca. We didn't want to make it a place where you had to physically get here. We actually wanted to be a place where we opened everything up. I used to give you a really hard time. You still do this. You leave your doors unlocked all the time at your house. Like I walk in at 2 a.m. I don't have a key to their house. I just walk in and he's on the couch watching who knows what on Netflix. And
yeah, when my wife's out of town, we live right in the middle of LA. I mean, Hollywood sign straight down that way.
Yeah.
I don't lock the doors all night.
Ever.
You know, because I'm like, well, my whole family's gone, so everything I value is not here.
I'm like, we value you. Lock it. But you said that's how you want your church. You want your church. You said if anybody wants to come in and take something, all I care about is that they don't take any human. They just take whatever they need and they go.
Yeah.
And you're like, I want that to be the culture of our church, where we're so open and so open-handed that people who ask for things get those things. That they get the help that they need. We get the culture that we need. And you've made it the vision much bigger than just us.
So part of the reason we're moving, I'm moving at a pretty intense level. Tercy was asking me about traveling every single week for the last 3-4 months or whatever. Yeah, I mean, I fly to Asia and back Monday through Thursday, fly to Australia and back Monday through Thursday, fly to Colombia and back Monday through Thursday. And I'm back and do all the gatherings here on the weekends. And a huge part for me is I actually think we're at an intersection in human history. Yesterday I was talking about the human imagination. There's so many things I didn't say that I just so regretted I didn't get to say. But you can't say everything. But I actually believe that before I die, the church will be known around the world in a completely new form. That the era of the church being known for judgment and condemnation, the church being known for legalism and conformity will literally come to an end. And that the church will become the human epicenter for creativity, innovation, and beauty, wonder. I actually believe that before I die, that we will experience the ushering in an entirely new phase of human history. And so I can sleep when I die because I want to be a part of making this happen across the world. And that's what we're all committed to. That's what Lawrence is committed to. That's what our team is committed to. We are not trying to do this for Mosaic. We are trying to do this for humanity.
That's good.
And yeah.
Yeah. I'm crying.
And this German theologian asked me, what's your secession plan? And that kid just came a couple of weeks ago. He seemed really distraught by Mosaic. Yeah. He actually said, I like being surprised. I don't like being overwhelmed. And he said, and this is overwhelming to me. And I just was so happy that Mosaic was overwhelming to him. And he said, what's going to happen when you die? And I thought it was so funny. I told Kim later, my wife, I said, well, it won't be as significant as when Paul died.
Dang, she real.
Right? I was like Paul died and we were okay. We were good, right? It's like Peter died, we were good. Like there have been awesome people who've been a part of the movement of Jesus throughout history. And I actually think there's a problem right now in the American church that we want to diminish the gifting in people. So this house church, home church concept sounds so awesome and primal, but what it actually is a diminishing of human capacity. Because what it's saying is that if you happen to have an extraordinary level of talent, you should not actualize that in your life. Because there's some people who can reach 10 people, and that's awesome, reach 10 people. But why should a person that God's gifted to reach 50,000 people reach 10 people? I'm in a room with pastors all the time who are so spiritual that they're judging every pastor who's more successful than them. And I cannot tell you how many rooms I've been in and I said, hey, can't we just all admit they're more gifted than us? And then it just bugs us to death. Can we just take a moment of just honesty and go, we would kill to be them. And since we can't be them, we just want to kill them. And in reality is that people are not gifted the same way. But the church always thrives. And I feel like I expect the people who come out of Mosaic to be more gifted than me. And that's why now, after all these years, you guys didn't need me for this event.
No, we needed you.
Okay. I'm glad I'm here.
You're about half the guest speakers.
But I get to do what I do.
You get to do what you do, and we think we've built a culture and a system that lets you do what you do.
It was so awesome when I saw what's on the screens. I'd never seen it before. And when you get to hear, I got to see what the band did. I'd not seen that before.
Yeah.
I'm experiencing it with you. And so when people come up to me and go, hey, when's this? I go, I am a pool of ignorance. You're talking to the wrong person. See, I was playing basketball while they were doing that. I was going to the movies while they were doing that. I was enjoying my life because I have learned how to not micromanage and how to let go of things, let really talented people create things.
It's actually really interesting. I was getting hit up while we were in this last session, and someone was posting stuff from the phone, and like a major creative director at one of like the major churches in our system or world, church world, was like, how are you doing this? Like, how many staff do you have? We don't understand. And
we have almost no staff.
We have about 3 that are creative staff, and about, Joshua, how many people are on your team? 50. He's not even, Joshua's a volunteer.
Joshua's a volunteer because he refuses to hear God's call. And come work at Mosaic.
We have like 50 volunteers. We put them in a box because we thought it'd be funny. You don't put creativity in a box.
Oh, they finally got it.
Hey.
Wow.
But I was like, that's how we do it. And I was like, let us know how we can help. The conference is in a few weeks. And I was like, our creative team is your creative team once we're finished. And it was just great. Like, how do you manage it? Our people are drowning. And they have a team of 30, 40 people. And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I think it's not me. It's definitely not me. I'm definitely not the answer. And I think that's the thing culturally that every single person on each team realizes, that like when we do creativity, when we do even messages, I mean, you give me far too much credit than I ever should have. And we talk about how that gets us in trouble sometimes. But no one on any of our teams ever takes the credit single-handedly. They always pass it over, to the point of annoyance sometimes, because you're like, who actually did that? And they're like, oh, I wouldn't know.
But one of the things that Aaron did implement, which I thought was so amazing, and it was actually really tumultuous.
Right.
Before Aaron took over the creative community of artists and designers, everybody always put their names on everything so they could get credit. Every photographer, photo credit. In fact, we did one of our events, and every page was filled with the credits of every single person, whether they took a photograph. And I said, honestly, we were like championing narcissism. And when Aaron came, he said, no one gets a credit. It's Mosaic. And if you want to be on this team, then you have to give that away. Yeah. And some people just couldn't do it. They would rather not take photographs than not be acknowledged. They'd rather not create animation than not be acknowledged. They would rather not use their gifts than if they're not acknowledged. And Aaron created a anonymous, we are Mosaic.
Yeah.
And the culture now is so beautiful. And now it's opposite. So who did do that?
And I'm like trying to figure out, and they won't tell me who did it.
Yeah. And they always, if you talk to them, they always say we. Like you can't get one of them to tell you.
No.
Because it's a we, it's a collaborative.
There's a culture of we.
Yeah.
To not be cheesy. But I mean, even when you brought me on to do social media, I think I just deleted all my social media. And then I'd found Tess, who now runs creative. And I remember when I brought Tess on as an intern, I was like, hey, we're only doing this until you can replace yourself. And she's like, what does that mean? Does that mean I get fired? And I was like, no, it means then now that you're that person's spiritual leader, to help them. And then I remember when she found Joshua, she was like, I think I found someone who's better than me, and he's way better than me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, great. And then he's now in the place where he's replacing himself. And now we're just layers deep of like this we mentality of where they're not just creatives, they're actually like spiritual leaders. They're actually going to be campus pastors. They're actually going to be people who are leading the way on so many levels. And but even to answer the succession plan thing, when someone asks me that, I'm like, I want to have so many names that are up for that I'm not the top of it, that I'm the bottom of it, that there's so much more talented people who could replace either one of us.
Yeah. And I'm always hearing from our paid staff that the volunteers on their teams are way more talented than them.
Yeah.
And if you have a system where people are afraid to identify talent because they feel like they'll lose their job, you have a really low ceiling for talent. And if you affirm people and actually elevate them because they draw talent. I think the greatest gift in the world is to create space for talent.
So true.
And Aaron would always say, my sister has all the talent. She can sing, she can speak, she can do, all this stuff.
It's a lot.
And he'd say, I don't have any talent, Dad. And in fact, it was, what do you do when you don't have any talent? And I remember when he was young, what would I always tell you? If you don't have any talent, you have?
I don't know.
You don't remember?
No.
I'd always tell you have the gift of leadership.
You would.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Because I said, because if you don't have any talent and you have huge vision, you have the gift of leadership.
Right.
Because that means that God has designed you so that you cannot do it by yourself.
Yeah.
So that means you have to call people to it and bring them into it. It's so good. I remember the first time I directed something, I said, hey, this is like painting without arms. Because when you're directing, you're having to like move talent and create an art piece without ever physically touching it. And leadership is like painting without arms. And it's like, he's not doing anything, so let's move him out of the picture. And then when they're not in the picture, nothing happens. And then you put him back in, and all of a sudden everybody's awesome again. You ever notice, like in professional basketball, that there'll be players that become awesome on a team, and then they get full of themselves, and then they take a ton of money and go to another team, and then they're never good again? And that other team just wasted, $20 million or $180 million, depending on the sport.
Chris Paul. Traitor. Sorry, love him. Just kidding. Sorry. Chris Paul, though, like, let's be real, you left LA.
He's very talented. And
and if you hear this, Chris Paul, we don't even want you back.
All right.
We cool Lakers.
But you know this, that you've seen this, right? What they didn't realize is that they were in a culture of greatness, and they benefited from the culture. The culture made them great. And we'll always have this dilemma here. People become great in our culture, then they think that they're singularly great. They leave and they drop like an anchor to the bottom, and they don't know what happened. And usually they become bitter toward us because they feel like somehow we stifled their success. And I go, no, what happened is you were in a culture of greatness. And so you're being elevated, so you looked so talented. And if you ever get in a culture of greatness where you achieve at the highest level, you should stay there. And you should honor it and respect it, because you can't even see what they're giving to you. And I feel that for myself. It's like Mosaic is a culture of greatness that allows me to elevate. I'm allowed to think more inventively, more creatively. I don't know if I would think with as much curiosity and eccentricity if I was somewhere else. But Mosaic gives me a culture and a context in which I get to dream and invent and create at a whole different level. And I see so many pastors do this, where they're wonderful in a certain city and so talented and gifted, and then they get headhunted to another place. Have you ever noticed that pastors who grow churches like 5,000 get called to bigger churches and usually don't last more than 2 years? It's because they inadvertently created a culture of greatness for themselves. And then they got confused. They thought they were great in isolation. See, I'm not confused. If there's a greatness in me, it's in the context that allows me to step into my greatness. But if you take me out of that, I'm like a cactus that you move into the rainforest. I won't know what to do with that. And so you have to find your space and go, I'm so grateful to be here, and grow in that.